Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, joined with my co-hosts Zack and Emmett. Dropping in for our weekly episode to update you on all things MSU athletics related. You know, the important stuff going on in the news today that we've all seen going through social media. Nothing else remotely important going on. We're going to touch a little bit on the athletic director hire of J Batt, get Zack's thoughts on that because he wasn't able to join us for the emergency pod episode, and then we'll kind of expand on stuff from his press conference. We've got some football news, some recruiting news on the football front, and then wrap it up with a little bit more hockey news from today and the previous weeks. A little bit of everything for you. Zack, Emmett, thanks so much for joining me. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. How are you doing, Emmett?
I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, we've had a little bit since the last time we had that emergency pod. Just a little bit to touch base with and let everyone know about the load for MSU athletics.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Yep. We'll dive right into it. J Batt introductory press conference, I should say. This week he was welcomed as the 21st athletic director of Michigan State University. Emmett and I kind of touched on this in his background earlier in the week, coming over from Georgia Tech. He was also an associate AD at Alabama. Zack, we'll throw it right to you and get your thoughts. What do you think of the hire of J Batt and how he fits with the university?
Yeah, so I know that you guys obviously gave the background, so I won't really talk about too much about kind of the background that J Batt really had because obviously you guys already kind of addressed that. But overall thoughts is this was a hire that I think really made the most sense for Michigan State. I know we've already been seeing some people outside of the sports world kind of get hired into the AD position just because it seems like it's more of a business type of deal. So I think you're going to see some more of those type of people that are like high up in the business world. I don't really think that's what Michigan State should have done, and that's exactly what Michigan State did not do. They went out, got a guy that has proven the ability to do what's most important to Michigan State, to the college athletics world right now, and that is to fundraise. That is to bring money. NIL is a huge deal, and one thing that J Batt obviously did really good at Georgia Tech is his ability to fundraise, his ability to get money into the program. And obviously you guys probably mentioned the idea of raising over $72 million, 43% more than any year in the past. But another huge deal about this hiring is that I believe it's since 1995 since Michigan State has not had someone internal get hired as the AD. So this isn't a move that really hasn't happened in a long time, but this is a move that I think, in my opinion, had to happen. You had to get a guy that showed that he can do it at another level, and you're getting a guy that I believe fully believes in what this athletic department can do. He talked about in the press conference how this athletic department is a top 10 in the country. I think he's going to operate like that. You've already seen him make a video of saying, hey, we need our donors, we need to fundraise. That's more than maybe any video we saw from Alan Haller, and obviously I don't want to take shots at Alan Haller, but that's the one big thing about Alan Haller. One of the big reasons was connection, was not really fundraising as much. That's not what J Batt is, and J Batt is a really extremely competitive kind of guy. Now, I know there was, I believe, a couple other podcasts like Black on Spartans. He might not be a guy that's going to be in front of the cameras a whole lot, but he's going to be a guy that's going to build off of those connections, and he's going to ask, obviously, for donations, but he's not going to do that for the first time. So he's a really competitive guy. Really like this hire. He's basically everything I think you really want as an AD coming from a smaller program. We're seeing success there. He can see success at Georgia Tech. If he doesn't see success at Michigan State, I'm very surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Emmett and I had both kind of agreed. We kind of outlined similar things. I know Zack touched on a couple quotes from his press conference, and we'll kind of roll into that because I know Emmett and I had some thoughts on that too. One thing I really liked, Zack had mentioned referring to the university or the athletic department here at MSU as a top 10 athletic department in the country. He also said pretty plainly and simply, all the great athletic departments in the country, football is king, and football needs to be operating on all cylinders for them to operate as an athletic department as a whole, basically. So it's nice, I thought, especially for the fan base who's been really critical of how the football program has been operating and the funding that they receive and may or may not get for NIL and players. I thought it was important for him to come out and just straight plainly and frankly address, yes, football is paramount. He made it a point to say all sports are important, and he's going to look at the non-revenue sports just as much too, but you need football to operate as the cash cow and cash king that it is, because that's where the majority of the funding for the athletic department is going to come in. You get it through football, and if you want to divvy it out through other programs, some schools do it differently and just kind of get a revenue share from everything and split it, and that's fine if you can make it work. I know other schools, I don't want to mean this as a shot, but I know schools like Michigan do it where football and basketball drive the ship and the rest of you get what you get because football and basketball are king. And not to discount that in any way, it's obviously worked for them, other circumstances withstanding, but they've obviously had some success with that model too. I know MSU is a little bit different with the hockey program being as successful as it is. Gymnastics up and coming. Golf has had its ups and downs. Tennis is really thriving, stuff like that. So we have other sports that are operating at a high level and will need some attention and some funding too to continue to do so. But overall, I think that was pretty important. And then talking about his connections too, we've heard this week with how highly recommended Jay came from the likes of Nick Saban, the headhunting firm we hired to make the search. President Guskowitz basically said to the search leader is, I want the top 5-6 guys in the country. And the search leader said, you mean the ones that are gettable, like that will be looking for a new job? And he said, no, I just want the 5-6 guys that are considered the best in the country. Jay was on that list. They didn't know if they'd even return his call, but we got him. So, Kevin said he was number one on the list. The headhunting firm kind of was like, I don't know if he's really interested in moving, but credit to President Guskowitz. He's like, well, get him on the phone. Let's see if he'll at least talk to us. And he answered the phone, and now we're here. Obviously, you're going to hear stuff like that at an introductory press conference. You're not going to hear that, oh, he was our last choice, and he just happened to be the one we got, or stuff like that. That's not going to come out, but I truly feel like Jay's resume and fundraising capabilities made him a top priority for the university, and credit to President Guskowitz, co-ADs, Tom Izzo and Jen Smith, and then the board for getting this done. So, Emmett, you want to finish up with your thoughts?
Yeah, so watching the introductory press conference, the main thing that, really stands out, how key football is going to be, because obviously, like Chris and Zack both have mentioned, the success of the football program really is going to determine the success of the athletic department as a whole. When you're playing meaningful games in late November, December, hopefully playing into January, that's going to generate a lot more revenue for the program, going to generate more revenue for the conference, and you want to be viewed as one of those top programs in your conference if you want to see the success on the recruiting trail, success in the portal, just domino effect really, because we've even seen just from basketball and March Madness, in the past we have seen those underdog schools like Florida Gulf Coast, for example, their admissions and everything go up by a ton, and it's going to make the school and athletic department as a whole, the more competitive football is, it's going to help the school, and you're going to push that level of competition and excellence in Michigan State, not just as an athletic department, but as a university. And overall, that's part of the goal, is with having your athletics be so good that it pushes your school to the next level. And honestly, football is going to be one of those dominoes that needs to fall, because we've seen basketball get to the Elite Eight in the last year. We've saw hockey, outside of that shocking loss, really be the top, if not the top 2-3 programs in the country, if not number one at points. So we've seen gymnastics go the farthest they've ever gone since, the 90s? So you have all these programs surging, but football, meanwhile, is stuck in the middle of a slump where the last time they went to a bowl game was the Peach Bowl, which feels like years ago. Cal Halliday was a freshman. Cal Halliday has retired from football and is starting a career in engineering at this point. It is paramount to get football in that right direction, because you don't have football going the right direction, then you are going to be in for a world of hurt trying to get everything else to continue. That's why Al Haller ended up getting the axe. The view was, you can't fundraise enough to make football more competitive, then we're going to need to end the contract and look for somebody else. And one thing that Zack said that stood out to me was how you're not going to see J Batt really be a guy on cameras, and I'm fine with him not being on camera, then instead being over visiting the donors, trying to draw more money and get more money rolling in for Spartan Athletics. I'm perfectly fine if he's not going to be everywhere on the camera, getting all the attention and talking up Michigan State. If he's talking up Michigan State to the donors who actually will get money instead of being a well-known, well-liked athletic director. Off the top of your head, can you name Alabama's athletic director? Can you name Ohio State's? Can you name Georgia's? Most likely not, unless you're a true diehard fan. And that's because these guys don't waste their time with the cameras. They go and spend their time with the donors.
Exactly. And before, obviously, we get into the football talk, the hockey talk after this, one really underrated point, and you guys might have talked about this, is the familiarity with Guskowitz and J Batt as well. There's a little bit of a background there, obviously, with J Batt playing at North Carolina and Guskowitz being at North Carolina. And I know on the call he mentioned, and kind of Eargoods wrote a really good article about this, but like 5 different words for like a concussion test, and that's just crazy that he obviously remembers that. But you did talk about how he really wanted to focus on football, and obviously in football the last couple of days there's been official visits. I know Chris is going to talk about upcoming official visits as well, but there's been a little bit more of momentum kind of going forward in these last couple of days with a couple commits to MSU. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Emmett.
Okay. So my first thought, of course, for football was the commitment of Braden Thomas. Honestly, from a guy living in the Cleveland area, you would hope the Spartans would get. You hope that they're going to flip a guy who's committed to Iowa State. Longer drive for the family, and obviously the Big Ten, which the Big Ten is a little bit bigger of a league than the Big 12 at the end of the day. So you're going to want that. You're going to want that competition, and you're going to want that national showcase, which hopefully Michigan State will get to be with these NIL funds rolling in, would be the hope. And obviously another defensive back, you have seen the Spartans and Jonathan Smith just prioritize defensive back after defensive back. There are nearly, 20, it feels like there's 25 defensive backs on the roster for next year, and there's another one signed on for 2026, plus Jack Lansing, the walk-on for the 2026 class. He has safety as part of his skill set. So
Plus
overall, you have... What's up?
Oh, sorry. I mean to cut you off. We have a lot coming in on visits, too, this next month, so...
Oh, geez. We have more coming in on visits, too. Oh, my gosh.
Yep. So, safety and corner definitely prioritized, not to steal your thunder, but yeah, we have a lot of defensive backs coming in.
I mean, that makes sense, though, because I know Devin Cromwell, the one-year transfer. Nikai Martinez, I believe, is a senior. Rucker, likely 3 years left. Khalil Majid has 2. Spencer is a senior, I want to say.
Yeah. So
you're losing a lot of talent that's been there 2-3 years, or is coming in for the final year. Joshua Eaton is a senior. Malcolm Bell is a senior. J Batt has 1 or 2 years of eligibility left. So a lot of this is some one-year replacement I wouldn't even say stopgaps as much as just players who are nearing the end of their eligibility. So obviously you're going to be bringing in a lot. So yeah, it is concerning how many defensive backs are coming in, but it makes sense, especially we saw what happened when there weren't enough experienced defensive backs ready. Last season, we had to burn Andrew Brinson's red shirt, which hopefully doesn't come back to haunt the Spartans in 2 years. But at the same time, that's what happens when it seems that every time you look, there's another player going to the locker room, or they're getting the card out for, depending on the situation.
Well, and not to be kind of a downer on the aspect too, but one of the more troubling position groups, I guess we should say, in the past few years has been our secondary. And yes, a lot of that's been injury related, but we've had a lot of issues stopping the pass in the past few seasons. And
part of that's pass rush too, to be fair. You can't cover a guy for 7 seconds.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's been multiple aspects of why, and I don't want to necessarily put it all on the players, but thinking of it from a logical standpoint, if you have a position of need or a position that hasn't been doing that great, you want as many chances to upgrade as you can and build some depth and build some talent ceiling. So yeah, I was happy we were able to get the flip for Braden. A lot of Bray names going to be on the team next year, so that's going to probably catch us at one point. I'll apologize in advance.
Collier, Braden Thomas now.
Yeah, so I'll apologize in advance. I'll probably mix names up at some point this season, so don't take it personally. But no, it's good to see some good talent coming, and I'm glad we were able to get Braden to flip and decommit from Iowa State to it's always good to win a battle against a coach as well off as Matt Campbell. He's one of the premier names in the country. So obviously it's not over. There's plenty of time before signing day, but this one's a good win as of now. So I will transition us quickly into the visitor list for prospects. We do have a lot of official visits coming in this weekend, but before I get to that, we did host 4 players on official visits throughout the week this week, midweek. They were in, I believe, starting Monday, some maybe Tuesday. I can't remember exactly when most of them got here, but they were in for a couple of days this week. The 4 that were in, 4-star edge rusher Carter Gooden from Marion, Massachusetts. He's actually the number 69 rated overall player on 24/7's rankings. He is nicely ranked. He's a talented edge rusher, and it's good to see, again, pass rush being a area that we could hopefully upgrade. It's good to see identifying a talented position or talented player at that position to bring in. We also had Tyson Harley, a 3-star linebacker from Washington, D.C. Jackson Gates, a 3-star corner from Laverne, California. He's currently a Syracuse commit. MSU has been working on trying to flip him for quite some time now, and so it was good to see him coming in and landing an official visit with him. And then the last one was 3-star interior offensive lineman Adrian Hamilton. I believe he goes by Ace. Offensive line, obviously another big position we've talked about on this podcast. Can't ever have enough depth in the trenches, so glad to see another interior offensive line coming in. From what I've heard, the visits went well. All 4 players were thoroughly impressed by what MSU has to offer. I believe Jackson especially has spoken out about how well everything went. Hopefully that's a good sign. No commitments have been announced yet. I don't know if any will be looming soon, but I know all 4 of them spoke really highly of the staff, the campus, the program, what we have to offer. So hopefully that was a great impression that will cause some either flips or commitments in the near future. Did you guys want to touch on any of them before I hit this weekend's visitors?
It's the family aspect of Michigan State. That's what.
Yeah.
That's the seller. It's we're all the family at Michigan State.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just looking at that general visitor list, obviously a ton of positions of need. You can never have enough corners. As I've said 1,000 times, the last year was really the focal point of that. You saw it come back to bite the Spartans. Offensive line, you always need 2 to 3 every class, preferably, honestly, 4, maybe 5. And Hamilton being an interior offensive lineman. I believe Eli Bickle is more of an offensive tackle type for the Spartans. I think he's kind of in that tweener size range, though, so you could really see it go either way. Granted, looking at the group this year, you saw offensive lineman A.J. Dennis play tackle for his couple games with MSU, and then he was working out with the centers this offseason during spring camp. So, obviously, long way to decide where each player is going to be. Interior offensive lineman, thankfully with Hamilton, looking at his size, he's not going to be exclusively center for the Spartans, which would be the primary concern for any offensive lineman. If you're recruiting a player who's too small, they might get stuck at just the center position, and then you don't have that cross ability. And just looking at it even from, as we've seen with the Lions and Frank Ragnar retiring, not a Lions podcast, but as we've seen, the center is a crucial position, but you want to have those players that can play guard and then flip to center, with Graham Glasgow and Tay Ratledge being the primary candidates for his replacement, both originally guards. So
and that new guy we signed from Arizona.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. I saw that. Yeah, I read on that one too. I was just like, I'm thinking those 2 are going to be Ratledge and Glasgow because of familiarity and being young.
Sure.
Anyway, not a Lions podcast. But,
not a Lions podcast as I turn my head around. Sorry.
Yeah, and then you just look at, like, obviously Jackson Gates. We've been able to flip one person from a non-Big Ten SEC school. Hopefully you see it again. That would be much needed, I would say, just to try to get that shot in the arm. Obviously Syracuse. When you look at it in the grand scheme of things, you would argue Michigan State's the bigger football school. Then looking at recent success, you might say Syracuse. So you want to try to get that flip and reestablish yourself as a program, and hopefully J Batt's there. More money, more funds, more NIL, hopefully.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love how one side of the ball we're building from the interior out, obviously the offensive side. Can we do a little bit on that defensive outside as well. I'd love to see a
Yeah.
little bit more some big guys, some defensive ends. It seems like
Help is on the way. We do have a crystal ball for a defensive tackle. Help is on the way.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it seems like the two teams we've talked about on this podcast, they love building from the outside in on defense. I love to see that a little bit split for Michigan State in this.
Yeah,
upcoming
I agree.
Yeah, I'm personally always in favor of building from the inside out, but hey, I'll take recruits any way we can get them at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of heartbroken over the J Batt commitment to Wisconsin. I know I was high on him. Kenny Jordan on 3. When we talked to him, he said he was high on Batt. So obviously, that one gonna sting, especially with the Spartans playing Wisconsin in a couple years. So, but
Yeah,
then
no,
in one
absolutely.
defensive tackle, hopefully you can start getting the dominoes falling and get an edge rusher in. Hopefully that 4-star Gooden. Hopefully, but
There's some other edge rushers too that are coming in next weekend or in 2 weeks that are being kind of late risers in the recruiting cycle too. So lots of options coming in, I guess I should say.
My concern just for next year is the edge rushers. I was talking to Zack before the podcast about how you're returning all of like half a dozen snaps from the edge rusher room in 2024 with Stone Chaney playing half a dozen snaps against Prairie View A&M. Obviously, I know Gillison's coming off an injury, and then you do have a couple more players coming in, like the Texas Tech transfer and a few others. But at the same time, nobody with more than 2.5 sacks against Division I level last year is the concern. I'm not doubting Jonathan Smith, but if you see the edge rusher position only produce, 5 combined sacks that they did last year, that is going to be a cause for panic. When you are looking at last season, you had 6 games and 6 games in a quarter without any sacks, which that's not an acceptable feat for any Big Ten team. And not bringing in any premier pass rushers during the portal cycle, big concern in my opinion.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll close this on this thought with that. Hopefully, with the secondary being hopefully improved, that will help because they do go. When you just talked about it, they kind of do go hand in hand. If you can get to the quarterback quicker, it causes errant throws, helps the secondary out. But if the secondary can hold coverage a little bit longer, gives you an extra half second or two to get to the quarterback, maybe that translates into some sacks. So we'll see. But yeah, no, I tend to agree. Hopefully, we have some surprising breakout candidates that we're maybe unexpecting, but. We'll quickly touch on the weekend visitors here. I'll just kind of run through them all quickly and then get your guys' thoughts. Here are the players who are visiting this weekend. Any rankings or overall ratings that I say they're going to be from 24/7. So just an FYI when I go through and say the star ratings and overall rankings. We'll start off with Charles Belser, 3-star linebacker from Philly. He is a fringe 4-star. He's close. I believe he's an 87 overall, probably getting bumped to an 88 soon from what I've read. Now, maybe if he somehow commits to MSU, that probably won't get that bump. But
85.
Yep, but he's an athletic linebacker from Philly. 6'2", about 215 pounds, has 14 offers. To me, it kind of seems like it's a race between MSU and Virginia Tech at this point. I feel comfortable with MSU's position in this, but it's recruiting, anything can change, so maybe a good weekend visit, we can nail down a commitment from him. The player I'm probably most excited for out of this weekend to come in, TJ Umenyiora, 3-star corner from Roswell, Georgia. That name sounds familiar. Yes, it's because his father, Osi, was a Pro Bowl defensive lineman for the New York Giants. Son is carving his own position as a corner. He's building quite the name for himself. 29 current offers. He's had 4 visits scheduled. He's already been to Northwestern and Mississippi State, be at MSU this weekend, and then he's going to Auburn next week. I think Auburn's probably the front runner in this. I don't think there's necessarily any imminent decision outstanding. Well, hopefully maybe we can persuade some feeling changes there this weekend. He is rated an 87 overall, also very talented high school player. Next we have Zachary Washington, a 3-star receiver from Wheaton, Illinois, also ranked 87 overall. He's 6'2", 185 pounds, holds 21 offers.
High school quarterback was Noah Voivak, by the way.
Yep, high school teammates with Alessio
Milivojevic.
Millie, high school teammates with Alessio Milivojevic. He was at Wisconsin last weekend. Most people seem to think it's down to Wisconsin and us. we'll see. Coach Hawk has been putting in a lot of work. Obviously, we have high school teammate on the roster, so hopefully that helps. Wisconsin is making a pretty strong push for him, though, so we'll see how that goes.
Wisconsin's class is filling up too.
Yeah,
I know
Wisconsin's
I've
class.
talked about Wisconsin a lot, but I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of their recruiting, and that scares me right now. Anyway,
Yeah, Coach Fickle's doing really well over in Wisconsin
he's
recruiting.
cooking.
So we'll see. Maybe that, like Emmett said, maybe that plays into it too. Because if he takes his time on the decision, maybe they landed another receiver or two, and there's no room for him. So we'll see. Next, we have 3-star defensive tackle Nehemiah Cologne. He's from Stillwater, Oklahoma. 6'4", about 255 pounds. He's ranked as about an 86 overall on 24/7. He's had 4 visits scheduled. Most notably was in his hometown of OK State this weekend, hometown school. This past weekend. Coming to MSU this weekend, and then he will go to Kansas and BYU still throughout the rest of the OV cycle. Not really sure who's got the edge on this one. A lot of people were thinking he'd want to stay home potentially, which obviously would give Oklahoma State the edge, but with him visiting there and not shutting his recruitment down or committing or anything, maybe he's looking for something else. We don't know. So we'll see what this weekend brings as far as his decision making goes. Next, we have another defensive back coming in. 3-star safety Elijah Caldwell-Hardy. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. 6 foot, 185 pounds, 86 overall on 24/7.
Another Florida DB.
Yep. Currently has 10 offers. I believe it's probably coming down to MSU and Florida Atlantic. Does he want to stay closer to home? That's
a rare finding too.
Yeah. Does he want to stay closer to home? There are other schools that were involved, but those are the only 2 visits he's set up, and he hasn't really seemed on wanting to set up anymore, so maybe something changes. I don't know. He's at MSU this weekend. We'll be at Florida Atlantic next. Does he want to stay closer to home? Does he want to leave? Who knows? Also, as we mentioned, a lot of defensive backs coming in with MSU. I don't know exactly how high up on the priority list he may be compared to other ones. We also have more coming in the next few weeks, so not quite sure where that recruitment goes. We'll have to see. I do know this is his first official visit, or his first visit at all to East Lansing. He's never been up here. He's been talking on Twitter about being excited to get up to Michigan and see the state, and so I'm sure the school will be showing off the campus and the fineness of East Lansing, so maybe that's a good selling point. Multi-sport athlete, runs track, I believe, so pretty athletic, could be a diamond in the rough type candidate. We'll see how that turns out. Another prospect I'm really excited to have come in, 3-star defensive tackle Christopher Knowles. D-tackle from Frisco, Texas, 6'4", 265 pounds. Ranked as an 85 overall in 24/7. Has 22 offers so far. He has visited Oklahoma State and Boise State so far. Hits MSU this weekend, and then will travel to Houston and Kansas to close out the official visit season. Super athletic, plays basketball, runs track and field, throws the discus. Really just an all-around. I think he's got some good pass rushing traits from the interior defensive line. Obviously coming from Frisco, Texas, that's a high level of competition in high school football, so he's no stranger to big-time play. So I know MSU's put in a lot of work for him. He's also got a really awesome first name, so maybe that will translate somehow. I'm excited to see him get to campus. Hopefully MSU can get a commitment out of him. And then the last one this weekend, another defensive back, Tyson Sanford from Suwanee, Georgia. He plays corner. I believe he was initially listed as a safety, but MSU's recruiting him as a corner. Kind of a late riser. He's actually not ranked yet on either the 24/7 composite or the 24/7 regular rankings. That's probably going to change when the updates and stuff come out. He has 18 total offers so far. To me, it seems like MSU and Wake Forest are the top 2 schools really going after him. I know Blue Adams has put in a lot of time with him, and then James Adams, our safeties coach, has also helped out a little bit. Him being from Wake Forest in his most recent stop has kind of maybe some inside track on how we could counter their recruiting pitches, so that might be something our favor that works out. Those are the list of visitors for this weekend. We have more scheduled for next weekend and the weekend after that. Also, I believe there's a couple midweekers in 2 weeks, I think, in between. So still about halfway through official visit season, but where we're at now, guys, you got any thoughts on the players coming in this weekend, or anything you wanted to add before we switch over to hockey?
Just give me as many defensive backs as possible this weekend. That seems like what's Michigan State's play.
That's the recruiting pitch.
So,
you're a defensive back, come play for us.
Please.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come play for us. Come come to MSU, and it's just one of those things where you have to trust Blue Adams and both the coaches, that they know what they're doing, that they're getting their guys, and if they end up landing a couple of them, they could be really good guys that could contribute in a couple of years.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing that stands out to me, landing another linebacker, big position in need, also defensive tackle with Knowles, because looking at those two positions, those are still high priority, I would say. Defensive back, not as much, but at the same time, obviously the staff views it a little different based on how much they're willing to invest. Bring defensive back after defensive back out. Just looking at Michigan State's own roster, having Samaj Bridgman potentially host a visit would be my idea for the linebacking duo, because Bridgman is also an athletic linebacker out of that Philadelphia area. So hopefully you can create that connection, create that bond. Hopefully get him to shut down his recruitment would be the ideal pitch here. We saw that succeed last week with Braden Thomas. So hopefully the staff can knock it out of the park. Having players visit Michigan for the first time, good idea to have them visit in June. I would say you don't want to try to sell the Florida boy something in December. You don't want to have to try to seal the deal in December and February. You want to get that commitment when everything is nice. It's not too hot, and Florida's way too hot and way too muggy right now. Yeah, go and get that. Go and land that in June. Ideal pitch right there. 10 out of 10 by this staff. No notes.
And if you really want to... Yeah.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Honestly.
And if you really want further explanation as to why, see Keon Coleman's, one of his introductory press conference with the Bills, talking about his need for a coat when he came to Michigan. So, but yeah, anyways, that's where we're at with the football recruiting. Obviously, if anything breaks after the visits, if we hear any nuggets about anything, we'll let you know. Hoping for a couple more commits this weekend, honestly. I don't want to put anything out there like I had to guess, but if we left the weekend and by the time we record next week for our podcast, if we had maybe 2 or 3 commits out of this weekend's visit, I would be pretty ecstatic, and I think that's potentially achievable. So I say that out of this weekend's, and then the players that were here over the week too. So hopefully,
I'd be more surprised to see 0 commits than say 3 or 4 from this batch, I would say.
Yeah. There's some players that MSU's put in a lot of time that have been here in the past week or coming this weekend, so
for sure.
Hopefully we'll get some good news. More defensive commits would be great, considering how our class has started shaping up with a lot of offensive commitments, but I digress
Speaking
on
of
that.
offensive commitments, two prospects who came to Michigan State in the last week have both set their official commitment dates, both within the first 10 days of July. A receiver, Elijah West, and offensive lineman, Ace Hamilton, both have announced their official commitment dates. I believe it's like July 5th and July 7th, give or take, or July 2nd, July 5th, something like that. So within the first week of July, hopefully you have 2 more Michigan State commits. That would be obviously the ideal scenario, but just something to keep in mind as we start pushing further into and closer to that dead period of no recruiting. Hopefully 2 players will like to shut down their recruitment right around that dead time.
Both had good things to say about their visits so far. I mean, again, you're not going to hear necessarily players coming out and trashing their visits unless something really went wild. It's
Hey, those Michigan hot dogs looked mid a couple years ago, is all I'm going to say.
So
the grill at the stadium.
But yeah, so you're hearing the things you want to hear. Hopefully it translates. I will say you'll start to also hear more commitment dates announced relatively soon, because a lot of players do want to wrap their recruitment up before their senior season of high school starts, so they can get that done and out of the way and enjoy their senior years. So hopefully you'll hear of a lot of targets with commitment dates at the end of June, early to mid-July, so they can get ready for high school ball and wrap that up. So that's it for football. Really quickly, we'll update some hockey news and notes, and then we'll get you guys out of here. Big news today. It's been talked about for a while. It's been kind of assumed that it was going to happen, but today we did get confirmation directly from the horse's mouth himself. Number 4 overall pick in the last year's NHL draft, Cayden Lindstrom. Now that the CHL playoffs and the Memorial Cup is over, we can officially get commitment announcements. Today, Cayden did confirm he is planning on playing at Michigan State next year. So officially, congratulations to Cayden. congrats to Coach Nightingale. That's a huge get. Cayden is an extremely talented player. Is coming off the back injury, but did recover enough to play a few games in the later stages of the CHL playoffs for Medicine Hat. I think he had a couple of goals and an assist in the WHL conference finals, and then in the Memorial Cup game, London kind of beat him up pretty badly. So I'm not sure if he registered a point, but that was a rough game for Medicine Hat anyway. So interesting end to the season for them. But, like I said, congrats to Cayden. Happy to have him. That's a big time pickup for MSU. Another potential prospect closing in and coming in shortly, Mason West, the Edina, Minnesota native. He announced today that he is finalizing his last couple of schools, and it looks like it's going to be between MSU and Boston College for his services. He is ranked right around the 25th-ish best prospect. He's draft eligible this year, so you'll probably hear his name called in a couple weeks in the NHL draft. He's, like I said, debating between Boston College and Michigan State. Little interesting to see that the Gophers weren't included in the final two, but we'll take it. Not sure if he ends up coming to MSU or not, but I know MSU is in a pretty good position for him. Our friend of the pod, Jeremy Dwyer, was talking about him earlier today, and noted that MSU has a real shot there. So he's going to be, I think, visiting shortly soon, and so we'll see how that lands. Of course, we'll keep you updated on that. And speaking of players visiting soon, this is the news I kind of had teased about in the emergency podcast. Things kind of went a little excited, a little haywire on Twitter a couple days ago when ESPN's John Buccigross, who's pretty plugged in the hockey world, he's the lead NHL guy, and big college hockey aficionado. He kind of tweeted out a picture of Gavin McKenna and the green and white, and kind of hinting at a potential marriage between East Lansing and Gavin McKenna. I can't understate how big that would be. For those of you who have not heard the name Gavin McKenna, he will be the number 1 draft pick in the 2020 draft. He is a generational talent. Many folks have already went in and compared him as the next Connor McDavid. Every few years in the NHL, you get a player that's kind of defied the odds. He was one of them. He got waiver exempt status to play in the CHL as, I believe, a underager. I think 15 was when he made the jump over to pro hockey. Last year for Medicine Hat, he's a teammate of Cayden Lindstrom. Went on something like a 56-game point streak, where in 56 games he had like 144 points or something outrageous like that.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's like, this will be the biggest recruit, I would argue, probably in any sport that Michigan State's ever landed. I can't oversell how big that would be. It's not a shoe-in to land him by any stretch of the imagination, but MSU is pushing hard. It sounds like Penn State is also in the mix. There was a lot of rumors that Michigan was in the mix, and that those have kind of decreased a little bit. So another reason to be happy we could steal him out of Ann Arbor, maybe, which would just be even better. But he is going to be setting up an official visit in East Lansing. I've kind of heard within the next week or two, so he'll be on campus. Cayden Lindstrom, again, being his teammate in Medicine Hat, now officially committing to Michigan State, is good potential news. Adam Nightingale, obviously, also being a big-time coach. One thing Cayden said that sold him on Michigan State was that basically they run their practices like an NHL team. This is probably as close to an NHL run program that you're going to find in college hockey. And for Gavin McKenna, he would be in the NCAA for 1 year. It would be next year, and then he'll be a professional hockey player. Whether it be the AHL or the NHL, it'll probably be the NHL.
It'll be the NHL.
It's one of those things that why not come to the closest thing you're going to get to an NHL program, and that seems to be East Lansing right now. So Boston University is also making a pitch for him. One of his other Medicine Hat teammates, Ryder Ritchie, is going to BU, so that could pose a threat for MSU. Obviously, BU is a pretty prominent program as well.
And the teams are playing in 2025, worth noting.
Yep,
yes,
exactly.
we do play Boston this year. Maybe a little grudge match. I don't know. It's pretty confident for most experts that Gavin McKenna wants to come to the NCAA. There's a chance he could go back to the CHL, but kind of it's being viewed as like, why? You've already kind of proved your point there in the last couple of years. Try to step up a little bit. Try to get to a program that runs more like an NHL program. Michigan State's right there. Play a year in college hockey, then go be the lucky recipient of whoever wins the draft lottery next year. So we'll update more as we get that. I'm over the moon at the potential to land him. MSU's already being pretty much favorite or number one preseason favorites. That would cement them firmly. Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it's him coming over to the NCAA is kind of newer news and kind of groundbreaking news because he's going to make a college team very happy wherever he lands. So as long as it's not in Ann Arbor, I'll be pretty happy, but I'll be even more happy if it's in East Lansing. So that's all I got on the hockey front. You guys want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll add a couple things real quick. Obviously, if McKenna did come to East Lansing, one, absolutely massive get like you're talking about, Chris, but also two, just imagine that team next year. Like you got Augustine, hopefully Isaac Howard. I know there's been some possibilities of maybe his contract gets traded. Hopefully, obviously, that doesn't happen. It seems like he's going to come back. But if you're really frustrated about like how things are going over at football, just come on over to Munn Ice Arena. Like things are getting built and it's getting really serious. And if you end up getting a guy like McKenna, and then you also have Cayden coming on over. If you're going to really take a risk, and I put on quote-unquote risk because I really don't think it's too much of a risk, maybe a little bit with his injury history, he did play a little bit. If you're going to do that, though, you're going to go after a guy like him, and if you have him, you have McKenna, you have Howard, you have Augustine coming up, this is going to be by far the most talented team Michigan State hockey has ever seen and ever put on the ice. Obviously, that's not guaranteed because McKenna might not come here, but like you already think about how big and how many like tickets have been sold. Like there's going to be, in my opinion, if there's any empty seats any night for MSU if McKenna does come, I am very, very disappointed because this is going to be a generational team, in my opinion, if McKenna does come.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Honestly, if you want, like Zack was saying, if you get frustrated with football, go over to the hockey program because honestly, there are so many players who are going to be stars in the league, especially with how it stands right now. So many players with high potential to be playing in the NHL. Hell, Augustine might be playing for the Red Wings in a couple years, so might as well see them while they're in college playing for your favorite team or alma mater. Go and see them, and honestly, depending on the opponent, they might score. They might put up more points than the football team does that weekend with how much talent there. That's not even a diss on the football team. That is just with how much talent there is. Okay, maybe a little
bit of a diss there.
Okay, looking at some of the opponents that we'll have to go through, like the weekend of Penn State, the hockey team might put up more points in that weekend than Michigan State.
Hey, we don't know that. Maybe the football team. Okay, honestly, if the football team puts up less points in a weekend than the hockey team, we can have that discussion.
I'm just saying, Penn State. There's a reason why James frickin' Franklin is viewed as a coach who could win a national title this year with how good Penn State is. Penn State is the Spartans hockey roster right now for football.
Yeah, well, and not to sell it short too, but with the OHL, BUHL, and QMJHL, I should have just said CHL, but with the Canadian hockey leagues allowing their players to come over now and be able to play NCAA, you're seeing a lot of top tier talented players come over to college hockey. Penn State is going to be a force to be reckoned with next year in hockey too. They're in talks to land Porter Martone, who's going to be a top 4 or 5 draft pick this year. They landed a couple of good other players. I know Michigan's landed a few CHL top tier players. The Big Ten's going to be loaded with talent, and while the way MSU's shaping up, I'd pick them over anyone, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an easy task.
It's going to be the best season of Big Ten hockey we've ever seen.
Yeah, you're going to get some premier talent, and if you're a hockey fan, it's going to be a lot of fun going to Munn, regardless of opponents next year, because there's going to be some talented players on the ice wherever you're looking. MSU obviously is the exception. They might be the most talented, but everywhere you turn, they will they will have some good players. So yeah, there could be weekends, to Emmett's analogy, where you have a sour taste after a football game, and it's like turning on Madden and putting the difficulty all the way down and beating the team 104-0 or whatever. That could be the same feeling. Just go over to Munn and watch them take out some frustrations on a hockey program. So who knows? But like I said, I've said it for months now. Munn will be the place to be next year, regardless if Gavin McKenna comes or not. If he does, you're getting a LeBron James level prospect in the hockey world to come into and see in a setting like that. So just go check them out for the fun. So that's all we had for regular show. You guys want to add anything before we sign off? We went way longer than we intended today, but that's all right.
Just a pair of quick hitters for football. Another assistant to the AD, John Diekman, is taking role with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not surprising when you have a new athletic director coming in with J Batt. You're going to expect that you see the AD bring in his own guys. Good for Diekman to find a role with the Jaguars. I want to say it's in the executive offices. Not entirely sure where. And then former Spartans, former defensive tackle Mike Panashuk was named to the All-UFL first team as a center. He now plays offensive lineman, actually. So congrats to Panashuk for a great UFL season. And that's really all I had.
All right. Well, there's your latest exciting stuff happening in East Lansing. Like I told you, the summer dead period kind of starts, but we're finding some exciting news, especially with football recruiting picking up, hockey recruiting still churning over. NHL draft is in a couple of weeks, so a couple of Spartans that are on the current team will probably hear their name being called. So exciting stuff coming up there. We'll have more to fill you in on recruiting visits next week, recruiting updates, and maybe some good hockey news. Who knows? But we appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks as always. We really appreciate all the support. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit us up on socials, comment in the YouTube video, Spotify video, email us, text us. Just kidding. I'm not giving out my phone number, but
Self-dogs.
hit us up and we'll do the best to put it on air. And got some fun stuff planned in the next few weeks. So we're excited to keep trucking with you guys. But that'll do it for tonight. We appreciate everybody tuning in. On behalf of Zack and Emmett, I say thanks, good night, and go green.
Go away.